Hey, fam, boy, Republicans talk about being compliant to Donald Trump. So you have an individual in Donald Trump who has told Republicans, don't you dare do a bipartisan deal to deal with the border and immigration reform because he wants to campaign on it. This is Mitt Romney talking to CNN.
Yeah, do you think this is what he wants, the issue, Donald Trump? This is what he's doing?
I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump. And the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling. But the reality is that we have a crisis at the border. The American people are suffering as a result of what's happening at the border. And someone running for president ought to try and get the problem solved, as opposed to saying, "Hey, save that problem. Don't solve it. Let me take credit for solving it later."
See, here's what's going. So he laid out what the deal is. Mitch McConnell has already told his caucus that, we're in a bind because Trump wants to run on this, and so he's impeding the action. Now, I saw a report earlier that said that senators are still meeting. This is where Republicans, Lauren, have to show some guts and say, hey, we were elected to lead. Listen, you're running for president. That ain't got a damn thing to do with our job is. We're going to continue negotiating on this deal. And for those Republicans who don't want to go along with it, guess what? That's on you. But they don't have those guts, Lauren. They will suck up to Donald Trump. And I'm telling you right now, Democrats should be hammering their asses every single day going, where you at? Where you at? We here. What y'all want to do? Where you at? Oh, I'm sorry. Your dear leader told you don't sit down and talk to us. I'll be wearing their asses out every single day.
Yeah, well, this GOP is just an endless, bottomless pit of nothing. That's what they are, an endless, bottomless pit of doing nothing, of standing for nothing. And what's really, really amusing to watch is the part where you have certain Republicans complaining about the border crisis, blaming Joe Biden, and now their dear leader is the problem. Of course, he doesn't want to fix anything because, of course, he wants to use it for an election year. But to get back to what Reese said about two weeks ago, when you don't invest in communication strategy and you don't invest in communications or even really have a strategy of communications like the Republicans do, which they invest in misinfo and disinfo. And they also take the time to have their ecosystem of communications hammer out the same nonsense over and over and over again. That's how you win these conversations, even though you're dead wrong. So here they are, dead to rights, dead wrong in front of the nation. Now Mitch McConnell's trying to pretend that they're actually still working on it, which everybody knows they're not. Mitt Romney, of course, takes the freaking veil off the entire thing. And so they look stupid as they usually look stupid, but you have to have the communications mechanism to expose their stupidity. And the Democrats don't have that. They don't have that. And so watch what happens next. Here they have a golden opportunity to expose the GOP for exactly what they are, which is a party of absolutely nothing that stands for absolutely nothing. And yet I bet you that they'll somehow figure out a way to blow it. I don't know that I'm right about that yet. I hope I'm wrong, but let's see.
You know, Reese, I am a huge fan of The West Wing. It is one of my all-time favorite shows. And put me in a two box. Actually, just pull it up. Don't pull the audio. Let's pull the video up, Reese. And this is a scene right here, Reese, where there was a government shutdown on the show. And President Jed Bartlett was dealing with Republicans who control the House. And they weren't returning his phone calls. They were not meeting. And so his staff said, let's go to the Hill. And so what then happened was they got in the limousine and walking to the Hill. Jed Bartlett, he got out of the car and he was shaking hands and all that sort of stuff like that. And eventually what's going to happen in this video here, Reese, Jed Bartlett on the West Wing is going to go to Capitol Hill. And he is going to sit outside on the bench of the outside of the office of the Speaker of the House. Now, what was interesting in this particular scene, Reese, is that all the media cameras are sitting there and they're literally shooting him, and they're like, wait a minute, is the president literally sitting outside of the Speaker's house? And they tried to suggest, some people, oh my God, he looks weak. No. What he did was he embarrassed them by going to them and daring them to open the door and to negotiate with him. This is the scene of him walking down the hallway. And again, all the cameras are there. And so he's going to eventually get to the Speaker's office. And he's going to knock on the door, and they're inside, and they're trying to figure out, okay, oh my God, he's what? He's outside. Do we actually answer the door? Do we actually sit down with him and negotiate? What do we do? Well, when they kept playing around, finally, Jed Bartley got up and left and went back to the White House, forcing them to have to come to him to hammer out a deal. Now, I know somebody is watching. Stick with the video. I know somebody is watching, and they're saying, well, Roland, that's television, that's fiction, that's not. No, that's exactly what President Biden should do, or he should send Vice President Kamala Harris and dare them to leave her or him sitting on that bench waiting as they sit inside. Dare them to actually negotiate a deal. Challenge them where they are and say, y'all have been saying, oh, go to the border. You haven't done anything. And guess what? We are here. We are ready. You need to defy Donald Trump. If you say you care about the American people, then why won't you do something about it? To me, that'll make some damn good TV.
Well, it's quite theatrical what you just outlined there. And I don't think that Democrats tend to dabble too much in theater in the same way that Republicans do. Republicans understand that you don't let a good crisis go to waste, and they know how to capitalize off of chaos. That's why you have these Republican governors trafficking human beings, migrants across the country, dumping them in places where they don't have the resources, and twisting the arms of Democratic mayors and governors. I think that, as appalling as Eric Adams can be on many things, he at least had enough sense to file a lawsuit, fight back against the bus companies to make it appear as though he's trying to do something to stem the crisis that is being inflicted upon his city because of the Republican governors trafficking migrants to his area. I think the big thing is the immigration issue is a losing issue for Democrats, to the extent that they can win back some people who are disgruntled about what's happening with the immigration crisis. You're going to lose people who are more so pro-immigration, or at least pro-humane treatment of migrants. And so that's why they're being very mute and very hands off in terms of the coverage and the messaging around what's happening with immigration. And they have to figure out some sort of sweet spot to not necessarily elevate the issue beyond where it already is, with Republicans taking advantage of it, but also seeming like they're doing something. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. I don't know that they are doing much. I mean, I know statistically speaking, border crossings are down. Deportations are up compared to even how many people Trump deported. But those are not the kinds of things that they necessarily want to advertise, because they don't want to alienate certain aspects of the Democratic base. So this is a very thorny issue. But one thing Republicans have figured out is they rarely, if ever, get penalized for incompetence, for obstruction, and for not solving things. And Democrats, on the other hand, do get penalized for not fixing the world with the stroke of a pen.
Look, here's the deal, Greg. I get all of the hand wringing, but frankly, I think it's weak. At the end of the day, if I'm the Biden administration, you damn right, I'm going to announce how many people we deported last year, which was an increase from the previous year. I'm also going to say Ronald Reagan signed an amnesty bill into law. I'm going to say that the immigration issue has not been a problem for the last 3 years, or for the last 7 years, or for the last 10 years. It has been a problem for the last 50 years. And so then what I'm going to do is speak about it broadly and lay out the various things that must be done. But what you can't do is just run from it. And you got to have the guts to challenge people like Texas Governor Greg Abbott. This is the crap that he sends out. This letter right here saying the federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. He's going on and on and on with this BS. Now you've got, 15, 16 Republican governors. I stand with Greg Abbott. You've got Representative Chip Roy saying Governor Abbott continued to defy the Supreme Court. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. This is when you are President of the United States. And again, if I could use another movie, American President, when Michael Douglas said, I am the President of the United States. And when you say is no state is going to usurp the Constitution, you are going to follow. And then you begin to say, Greg Abbott, if you want people in your state to follow the law, call yourself law and order, well, then you abide by the exact same laws and the Supreme Court has already decided. You challenge them that way. And then you say, and then I dare say this here, what President Biden should do, he should say, fine, Donald Trump, you want to come back into the Oval Office? I invite you to come down to the U.S. Capitol for the meeting as well. See, you call their bluff. You challenge them. You don't play footsie with them. You swing. You swing hard. Because, yes, if you look at the polling data, Republicans are polling strong on immigration. But guess what? It wasn't fixed when Trump ass was there for 4 years. It wasn't fixed when George W. Bush was there for 8 years. It wasn't fixed when George H.W. Bush was there for 8 years, when Ronald Reagan was there for 8 years. And so you invoke all of them. But you got to be willing to fight, and you can't be wishy-washy on this thing.
No, Roland, I don't think that there's an answer really to this because it has been framed. Immigration is a problem. That is the framing. That is a lie. That is incorrect. We, of course, are the largest population of forced immigrants in this country, having been brought here against our will. And everybody but the indigenous people is an immigrant. I won't even get into why you shouldn't be calling Mexicans immigrants.
First of all, I was just reading the Washington Post story last night about the BS about the Alamo, and all them white folks who came to Texas when Mexico was running were actually immigrants.
Absolutely. In fact, as your friend Gerald Horne, as you have talked with him, and I have as well here on this network with the counter-revolution of 1836. These are cold-blooded white nationalists. And as far as I'm concerned, and Jim Bowie had enslaved Africans in the Alamo Fort. And if we knew our history, we'd be cheering for the Mexicans. But of course, this is where the problem comes up. You're talking about white nationalists. The Democrats are soft white nationalists, and the Republicans are the hardcore white nationalists. And in this case, as always with foreign policy, it is nativism that is driving this. Now, if there is a United States of America in 100 years, it's going to be very different than the one that is here today. And we're going to look back on this moment as perhaps the death knell of white nationalism in this specific regard. Federalism, protecting white nationalists, worked in the Civil War. It worked in the so-called civil rights movement. But this has never gone away. There is no immigration policy in the federal Constitution. The Immigration and Nationalization Act of 1965, following an earlier iteration in the 1920s, is when they got worried about immigration because it began to be less white. And the Italians and Jews.
Boom. Sustained.
Exactly. But
sustained.
But 100 years from now, when white people might be the largest minority group in a majority, quote unquote, minority country, this is going to be a very different conversation. Now, how does that speak to today? Joe Biden can't take the position that immigration is good for the economy. Now, we just saw today, numbers released. The economy is booming. GDP is up. Now, that doesn't hit everybody's pocketbooks in the same way because a majority of these fools trust Donald Trump to handle the economy better than Joe Biden. So we know this isn't about information. A third of the voters in the Iowa caucus has said their number one issue is immigration. I didn't know that was an issue in Iowa. It's not. What is at issue is white supremacy and nationalism here, nativism. So what the Democrats can do, however, to the point that you're raising, is take off the gloves and fight within the context of an unwinnable argument about immigration, because immigration is not an issue. But we have to set that aside because we're not talking about rational actors now. We're talking about nationalists and people who don't pay attention. What he can do is federalize the Texas National Guard. What he can do, like Congressman Castro and them are saying, look, man, stop playing with this shovel-mouthed bastard governor who is trying to spark a civil war. Stop playing with people like this hillbilly J.D. Vance in Ohio who is saying, don't send this bipartisan legislation to the House because MAGA Mike Johnson has already said that onward Christian soldier is going to die and they're going to blame MAGA. He has to push back against someone like Tom Tillis in North Carolina, who's up for election in a couple of years as that state continues to change demographically, who is like, this isn't weak legislation. Y'all just scared of Donald Trump. Nobody will say anything. You just got to seize the moment and push back. Finally, this is an election year, as we know. The mummy is going to lose Michigan behind this Israel-Palestine business. That is a terrifying thing. It should be terrifying. You can't square foreign policy with the white nationalists because this country exports white nationalism, meaning their foreign policy on that issue, they're both the same. This is why the mummy McConnell wants to pass the Ukraine package and knows that this immigration thing is a problem. But what we have in this country is a dying white nationalism, and the Republican Party has bet everything on staying in power a little while longer by clinging to it. And Joe Biden has to make a choice. Either you're going to come up out of that soft white nationalism and attack them, or you're going to continue to whistle past the graveyard, lose, and you know who's going to get stuck with the bill for that? The people who watch this show, not the mummy Joe Biden. He's going to be in Delaware. We the ones going to have to face the naked face of white nationalism in this country if Trump gets back in office.
People need to understand what is truly at play, and absolutely. And for all the people who are watching, this is why I keep trying to explain to y'all why you got to stop spending so much of your time on the gossip blogs and all the other BS, because what is happening right now, y'all, we actually saw this in the last 15 years. You know where we saw it? Europe. Guess what's been going on in Europe?
That's right.
I need everybody to understand what I'm talking about. In the last 15 years in Europe, guess what happened? The Germans, the Italians, the French, the British, all them white folks stopped doing the same thing white folks in America stopped doing. Procreating. They stopped having babies. If you go right now to Google and look up what's the average age of Italy, Ireland, Germany, France, England, increasing. What's their concern? We ain't gonna have no people. Now, some of these FBA B1 dumbasses, Roland Martin said here, he said we need immigration. We need these people. Let me say it again. Okay, you know what? Since some of y'all don't understand, the report came out today talking about the economy grew at a 3.3% annual pace. It's called gross domestic product. It's called GDP. Let me explain something to y'all. Your GDP can't grow if your population is falling. Okay, let me say it again. Your GDP cannot grow if your population is falling. Why have they been having economic anxiety, economic calamities? Why has Europe not rebounded as quick as the United States when it comes to inflation? It's because all of those folks in Europe are trying to hold on to whiteness, and guess what? They're dying. That's why they have been fighting in Germany, in Italy, in France, in Britain, African immigration, black people, brown people. Oh my God, y'all didn't see all the stories? I did. The last 10, 15 years, too many of them coming. We're losing our way. Y'all stop having babies. Italy, Ireland, Germany, France, London won't exist in 30 years if their population keeps falling. Okay? I'm gonna throw one more on here, because see, this is, I know some of y'all are sitting here, so y'all trying to look at me like like look at Dr. King. Why you focus on this foreign stuff? Why don't you stick to that little black stuff, civil rights? Y'all ever heard of a country called China? Anybody remember watching 60 Minutes in the 80s when they did a story on China's one-child policy? Greg, Reese, Lauren, y'all might remember that. Yes. One child policy, y'all. Absolutely. China was like, hey, we got too many people. So you know what China did, y'all? China said no family could have more than one kid.
That's right.
Now, everybody talking about how smart China is. No, China was dumb. Because China didn't do no math.
Nope.
What China didn't realize is if you limit one family to one child, when people start dying, you need a population to replace the people who have passed on in order to continue to do all of the jobs in a functioning economy. Guess what happened? China went, oh shit. The hell are we thinking? So you know what they did? Shit. Okay, 2 child. Now they just changed it. 3 child. Next up, they're gonna be saying, hey, I need y'all to have 5 kids.
That's right. And it's too late.
Too late, y'all. It's too late. Because guess what? All of the people who were living in rural China, manufacturing in the farms,
yes,
they don't exist. They moving to the city. China is having economic upheaval because they ain't got enough people.
That's right.
So what white Americans are doing, that's why I wrote this book, White Fear, because I lay it all out in here. We're losing our way. Y'all, the numbers simply do not lie.
That's right.
You're not going to have a great America and an economy 30 years from now unless you have people
That's right.
in the jobs, trained, educated, and now positioned to have children in order for the next 30 years. See, some of y'all just thinking about the next 6 months to a year. And I get these black people, man, they coming over here, they taking our jobs.
Wrong.
Listen to me, black people. These white supremacists got you using the same language.
That's right.
Using the same language as them. And I already know. I know all you FBA B1 dumbasses gonna run your mouth, do your video. See, there you go, he an anchor, baby. He Haitian. I'm not.
And if you were, so what?
Right. Mom and daddy from here. Grandparents from here. Great-grandparents from here. My maternal, paternal ancestors migrated from Haiti. That leaves me with 3 other grandparents, dumbasses. But, oh, and by the way, for all you dumbass FBA and B1 people, black immigrants account for 10% of the US population. And so when we're talking about congressional seats and we're talking about apportionment, and we're talking about census dollars and stuff along those lines, guess what? Those black immigrants are included. So you're gonna want that 10%, because see, you're gonna want the number of folks who are black immigrants who are in Minnesota. You're going to want those black immigrants in Houston, largest Nigerian population. You're going to want those black folks from Liberia, black folks from Bermuda. See, this is when I need our people to stop listening to YouTube economists.
Come on.
TikTok anthropologists and Instagram political scientists to understand the larger picture what we're dealing with here. You have to create a functioning system where you're processing people properly, and then where they're also going. Because the last point I make here is this here. For all y'all people who are sitting here, who are freaking out, guess what? Black and brown immigrants is what has changed the population shift and the electoral shift in places like Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia.
That's right.
See, this is the problem, Reese, that we got too many people listening to dumb folk on social media who are not fully understanding of what's going on here. And while these same people are yelling and screaming about migrants coming in, they don't even have remotely the same energy when it comes to advocating for public policy for the existing people that directly impacts us. They spend more energy trying to fight them versus, hold up. Let's make sure these folks are elected, then let's make sure these dollars are apportioned, because I'm gonna say it again.
Right.
Congressman Bobby Scott was sitting here shoveling money to HBCUs when the Democrats control the House. And guess what? That money was, so guess what? All these HBCUs, Tennessee State, Howard, Morehouse, Spelman, Texas Southern, Florida A&M, we're seeing massive increases. Now we got to build more dormitories. What's that called? Black construction. Oh, now we got to acquire the land. What's that called? Black real estate people. Oh my goodness, we now got to have more goods and services. What's that called? Black stores. But again, though, the simple Simons out there don't quite understand the notion of building a black economy and a black infrastructure, because they so caught up sounding like white supremacists saying, oh, here come those other people. Another round, Reese, Lauren, then Greg.
Yeah, and I want to caution Black people in particular who do find some sort of sympathy or community in the notion that immigration is a problem. I don't mean immigration is a problem in the strictest sense. I mean trafficking people and dumping them off with no resources is a problem. That's the crisis that we're talking about here, not just the fact that people are coming to this country. But I don't know that. But what I do want to say is, look at what we've covered in this show with the Crown Act. When you have white nationalists empowered to disregard state law, which is what we saw with the superintendent doing with the Crown Act, when you have white nationalists like Greg Abbott and the 15 other governors that said, I stand with Texas, willing to disregard the Republican, extremist, radical, right-wing Supreme Court because they got one ruling that didn't go their way, what do you think that means for us as Black people? Don't find community and don't find a hero in the people that are attacking your citizenship right now, that want to strip you of your right to be a Black person in the skin you are in, with the hair that you are, going to the ballot box, going to the schools, going to do whatever you want to do, who want you to conform, who want you to bow down to them when they pull you over for a damn traffic stop or whatever. These are not the people that we want to empower under the guise that they're going to solve immigration, because as we're seeing the discussion kicked off, they don't really want to solve immigration. They want it to be a hot button issue so that they can continue to grab more power. Now is not enough because they have the House, but they don't have the numbers they need in the Senate, and they don't have the White House. So they're just bidding their time, using this issue as a hot button issue to further empower themselves, on the state level, to disregard federalism, disregard the courts, to do anything they want to do. It's not going to stop with immigration. It's going to keep going and going and going. It's already done with women's bodies. Black people, we are always ones to get it the worst. And so be careful what you wish for with these Republicans saying to hell with Biden, to hell with what the Democrats are talking about. We're going to take matters into our own hands. That's not something that I would ever usher in if I had a choice.
Lawrence.
That's right.
You know what? I think that even though it's certainly true that we can get lost in this idea of some of these bad arguments, these bad faith arguments that Republicans make with regard to immigration. I mean, there is a lawsuit in Chicago. 3 Black Democrats are bringing up the fact that the migrants who were bussed in by Greg Abbott into Chicago are getting certain social services that they're arguing that the Black community should have been getting for years. And I'm not sure that that's a bad argument. I haven't read their lawsuit yet. But even though on its face it sounds like something that a Republican would say, I think we do have to figure out this complicated issue of what we're doing with folks who are not legal citizens in the United States. But these cities are, of course, trying to take care of people because they're trying to be humane in New York and Chicago in particular. And as somebody who's been in New York a lot over the last 2 months, that's a really difficult question. You know, what do you do with non-citizens that do have to be taken care of? And through really no fault of their own, this gimmick of being bussed in was, you know, absolutely crazy. But at the same time, when you see social services going to folks who are not citizens and you're a citizen of the country, particularly African Americans, I mean, we are the group that has been screwed over for 405 years. We should be at the top of the list asking these questions about why it would be the case that a group of people would be housed and given health care, et cetera, and so on. You know, our community a lot of times disproportionately does not get those services. So I think those are fair questions. They're complicated questions, but I don't know that we should get caught up in being afraid to ask those questions, even though they sound like something that some MAGA Republican might ask in Congress. But those questions still have to be answered. You know, I do think that there's a lot to unpack on a lot of the social questions we have. And what complicates that is when you have, you know, bad faith actors, and obviously Donald Trump involved is incredibly unhelpful. But at the same time, there's some things there that need to be dealt with.
Greg?
I agree with Lauren. I think what we have is the unfinished business of changing the fundamental structure of this criminal enterprise called the United States of America, this settler state. And people hear me say that and they say, why would you say everybody calm down? The chance to do that was the Civil War and Reconstruction, the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And I won't go into this in detail today. We've talked about this a long time, many times. Everybody has talked about this in one way or the other. The simple fact of the matter is that this country, if it wants to be what it claims to be, is going to have to treat all human beings with a fundamental, basic decency. And people say, well, if you're not a citizen, you can't be treated like citizens. That's simply not true. When you read the 14th Amendment, Section 1, the Privileges and Immunity Clause, it says that, you know, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. They made up substantive due process in the slaughterhouse cases. That's a story for another day. This is judge-made law. And if you read what Ketanji Brown Jackson has been saying in her short time on the bench, she's committed to this rereading that will be true to the nature of those Reconstruction Amendments, which is, as far as Black people are concerned, when the United States begins as a constitutional enterprise. It's not George Washington and them. It's in the smoke of the Civil War. I'm raising this for a reason. The 14th Amendment, if you are living in a state, the original interpretation of the 14th Amendment and the legislative debate over the 14th Amendment meant to ensure that you as a person had fundamental rights. Your citizenship didn't matter. It talks about citizenship in the previous sentence. Again, I don't want to get too far into this. This is where I want to come to, because I agree with what Lauren has said. Everybody should receive social services. Everyone should receive health care. Everyone. The Democratic Party has betrayed its ostensible founding principles when it says that it's going to look more and more like this corporate Republican Party, which brings me to the point that the expiration of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act A lot of those provisions are going to expire in 2025. This is stuff that Trump and them pushed through with Brennan, Tim, mission accomplished, Gerber, baby, Bucktooth, whatever, Mushmouth, Scott standing behind him with Paul Ryan and them in the Rose Garden as they gave away stuff to billionaires. When those provisions expire in 2025, the Brookings Institution released a report late last year that said at least $3.5 trillion can be generated in revenue by reforming the tax code in 2025. Again, why this election is important. Biden and them have been pushing for this. If you simply restore the corporate tax rate to 28%, and this goes back to the gladiator invader of Grenada, Ron Reagan, and Bush and everybody else, and then Barack Obama and them too scared to deal with it, and then here come Trump and them giving the store away. If you simply restore the corporate tax rate to 28%, that raises $1.3 trillion over the next 10 years. And guess what? Those dollars can now can be used in part to put a floor under everybody. You don't want Black people who are citizens of this country and immigrants from other places playing oppression Olympics. That only serves the billionaires and these poor white people using the N-word, shooting through increasingly fewer teeth in their mouth because they have no health care. This is a game where conflict like that only supports the rich, and those are the ones who are gaming the system. If the Democrats are too scared to take that position, then damn it, at the state and local level, people have to make another set of choices. But this is not going to be resolved. If it's not going to be resolved peacefully, it's going to be conflict in this country. But there's enough for everybody if this country is committed to that. We know it's not now, but we have to be the ones to say, stop. We can make sure that it is.
This is very basic, folks. Republicans have been ranting and raving, go to the border, fix the border, fix the immigration problem. And right now, you've got Democratic and Republican senators ready to strike a bipartisan deal. And Donald Trump goes, wait, don't you touch that, because I need immigration as a campaign talking point. Because they can't run on the economy, y'all. The numbers are changing. They can't run on that. So now it's like, I need that, I need that. And this is the moment where Democrats should be on the offensive, saying, where you at? We're here. We're ready. In fact, I will say it, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, I say Senator Chuck Schumer, go to the border, have a news conference, and say, where you at? See, again, they have been punking Democrats. Yeah, Vice President Kamala Harris, you're supposed to be the border czar. What you doing? Where you at? Remember all the funk they made about how she answered the question to Lester Holt about going to the border? This is when you go on the offensive and you say, oh, y'all don't care about the American people. Y'all don't care about this issue. Y'all some crass politicians because your dear leader, the orange orangutan, has told you, don't you dare fix this problem because I need it for the next 8 months.
That's right.
Hit them. Forget that Michelle Obama crap. When they go low, we go high. Nah. They punch you in the chest, you punch them in the stomach. They punch you in the stomach, you punch their ass in their thighs. They hit you in the thighs, you punch their ass in the shins. They hit you in the shins, you knock out their damn ankles. They hit your ankles, hit the bottom of their feet. This is where Democrats have to be absolutely aggressive, completely aggressive, and say, you want to swing? Let's swing. Y'all a bunch of hot air. Y'all are all talk. You ain't trying to fix jack. And then you can say, just like your boys had infrastructure week for 4 damn years. I need see again, all y'all who are at home listening on the podcast, video, audio, listen what I'm about to say. Biden Harris goes, 4 years. All y'all had was infrastructure week. Y'all were all talk. We passed the bill. Y'all will all talk about reducing inflation. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Trump, you didn't sit here and fund HBCUs. We dropped $6.5 billion to HBCUs. You were excited about $250 million. They can walk their asses down on issue after issue after issue, but you can't be afraid to swing. And then if I'm Biden, I'm like, you focus on my age, I'm focusing on getting stuff done. They should be hammering every single day. They should be sending out administration officials, not campaign officials, administration officials. Democratic leaders in the House, Democratic leaders in the Senate, Democratic governors, Democratic mayors should be saying, you sorry, do nothing Republicans. All you're doing is kissing the ass of Trump and not fixing the problem. Who do you work for? The American people, or do you work for that orange one indicted 4 times on the 91 counts? Yeah, that's how I would respond. I would be hitting every Sunday show this weekend, every show on Saturday. But you also got to have a coordinated attack. And let's see if y'all up to it. Because we already know what they're going to do. They've already made it clear what they're going to do.
That's right.
They want to run on the issue. You say, we came here to get stuff done and to fix stuff, not to kiss Donald Trump's behind. We shall see what they do.